So President Joe Biden was featured on 60 Minutes to talk about Ukraine, Russia, China, Taiwan, Syria. You know, the list goes on and on of potential threats. Because, you know, as they say in the imperialist war machine like fashion, you got to keep them scared. You got to keep them scared. That's why we have to list a bunch of countries as potential threats and how they're a threat to democracy and their nefarious plans and they might counteract or do something. And oh my God, we got to be ready for those situations. Even though they have nothing to do with us. They have nothing to do with us. And everybody that knows and everybody that's been paying attention outside the mainstream media, outside the war empire, understands that all of this has to do with geopolitics, corruption, money laundering, has to do with the war machine, has to do with the military-industrial complex, and a lot of cases also has to do with resources. That's why we're in Syria. That's why we're occupying still in Iraq and Afghanistan and a bunch of Latin American countries. The resources. Trump even said famously, we're there in Syria because of the oil. I thought it was because al-Assad was such a bad person. I thought it was because the president there gassed his own people. Well, it turns out that was a false flag attack. And now here's Joe Biden, maybe, potentially, initiating a false flag for Ukraine, because we're seeing that slowly, the narrative is disintegrating, and it looks like the losing end for the neo-Nazis. So here's what he had to say about this.
As Ukraine succeeds on the battlefield, Vladimir Putin is becoming embarrassed and pushed into a corner.
So I don't know if you heard that. Scott Pelley thinks that Ukraine is winning and Vladimir Putin is scared like a little cat. And if you've been watching this channel, or if you've been watching Jackson Hinkle or Jimmy Dore or anyone outside of mainstream media and have seen actual video proof of what's actually been happening, no, Vladimir Putin is actually dominating right now. If you look at the currency, you look at the ruble compared to the US dollar and the European euros, it's skyrocketing. You see the trade deals that are happening with China and Russia and Saudi Arabia and other countries that are aligning with themselves with Russia. So this idea that Vladimir Putin's scared and he's tucked in a corner because of this is laughable. Is literally laughable. But here's what he said again.
As Ukraine succeeds on the battlefield, Vladimir Putin is becoming embarrassed and pushed into a corner. And I wonder, Mr. President, what you would say to him if he is considering using chemical or tactical nuclear weapons.
So, this is why American journalism is literally a comedic art. So instead of asking President Joe Biden exactly how Vladimir Putin feels that he's, cornered, how exactly the United States make Vladimir Putin feel so scared and cornered, Scott Pelley is going to go and say, how do you feel if he's going to use chemical weapons or go to a nuclear attack? Because, that's exactly where Vladimir Putin's going when he sounds scared. Where we just saw speeches of him, we've shown it on this channel before, we've seen speeches of the fact that he's de-escalating the war. He's saying, he's calling out NATO, he's calling out the European Union, he's saying, this is ridiculous that you're wasting your time and energy and money and effort to escalate this war when really this war is potentially over. Like, why do you keep doing this? Why do you keep doing this? Like, just end it. End it for the safety of people. End it for the safety of your people. People are suffering back home as much as they are suffering on the battlefront. But how do you feel about him using a red flag, just like the same red flag tactic we said about Bashir al-Assad, just like we said about Saddam Hussein, just like we said about other dictators, just like we said about Muammar Gaddafi, that they turned Libya, which was like the Beverly Hills of Africa, into a slave market.
Don't.
Don't. Don't. It will change the face of war unlike anything since World War II.
Yeah, he sounds like the tough guy there. Don't. Don't. Sorry, my hot milk and turkey sandwich just kicked in. Is it nap time? Don't do that. Don't. And he's saying Putin is the scared one. He's saying Putin is the timid one. Like, Joe Biden in this interview, just don't gas people. Don't gas people. But I mean, if they do, just don't. Oh my God. And it goes to show you that American politicians really don't care about the outcome. They really don't care about the outcome because, as Julian Assange has said multiple times, the whole point of wars like this, the whole point of the Ukraine war, Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, you have it. The whole point of these wars is not a winnable war. It's not to end the wars. It's not to have any outcome whatsoever. It's there to perpetrate even more war. It's there to escalate and continue to evolve into more war. That's the whole point, so that the military-industrial complex can ride high with millions of dollars of taxpayer-funded money that's being shuffled over towards them. It's all a business opportunity for them. It has nothing to do with bringing them democracy or helping those people or anything with humanitarianism. It is all a business decision made by the military-industrial complex, NATO, the intelligence community to orchestrate these illegal atrocities. They're putting destruction on humanity as we know it, from the Ukrainian side, Russia's side, and everywhere else.
And the consequences of that would be what?
I'm
What
not
would the
gonna
U.S.
speculate that.
response be?
Do you think I would tell you if I knew exactly what it would be? Of course I'm not going to tell you. It'll be consequential. They'll become more of a pariah in the world than they ever have been, and depending on the extent of what they do will determine what response would occur.
Two war goons sitting together. You can tell Scott Pelley's really amping up for it. He's rubbing his glasses like, oh, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Where are you going to attack first? And Joe Biden says, I don't know. I'm not going to tell you that. It's secretive. I'm going to tell you, it's all a surprise. So, by the looks of it, it looks like they're cooking up something. They're cooking up some sort of charade, some sort of false flag attack to continue on the perpetuation of this war. Because they know Ukraine is losing. They know that people are losing touch with the narrative. They know better that this whole charade was just a charade of the military-industrial complex. And they got to convince people again. They got to keep them scared. So what are we going to do? We're going to pretend that Vladimir Putin gassed people in Ukraine. Even though he's talking about de-escalating war and how NATO is arbitrarily being aggressive in this. Even though he wants a peace negotiation. Even though he wants to bring a diplomatic situation to the table. He's going to say that, oh, well, he gassed a bunch of Ukrainians. I bet you CNN's going to go over there right now and start sniffing backpacks for it. Just how unbelievably crazy that is. So here's some screenshots, though, I want to point out, too. It says the Western media, based on the U.S. Army market surveys, is taking notice of the critical shortages of munitions among U.S. stockpiles and what is available to send to Ukraine. The shortages undoubtedly have and will continue to manifest itself on the battlefield in the form of Ukrainian forces being constantly outgunned. Something to take note of. Something to take note of. But Scott Pelley is saying Ukraine's winning. And Vladimir Putin's the little coward child sitting in the corner going, what am I going to do? And I just want to add this in because, again, to just point out, we're the nefarious ones. To all the people that think all these different countries are there to attack you and the terrorism and the threat of all these situations that could happen. They're cooking up something evil and nefarious to take you down. No, the people that are taking you down are the people telling you that. The real evil, nefarious people are the people that are telling you who's evil and nefarious. And that's the United States. The United States imperialistic empire that has done catastrophic damage across the world. Across the world. And here's a graphic just to sum it up. Countries that haven't dropped nuclear bombs on civilians, everybody else. Countries that have dropped nuclear bombs on civilians, the U.S. And who's saying that Russia is going to have nuclear capabilities and they're going to attack people in Ukraine? The United States. So do you see, you got to just get outside the war machine, get outside the propaganda, and add 2 and 2 together to realize, yeah, this whole thing is really just fucked up. This whole thing is manufactured for the military-industrial complex. We were warned this in the 50s, for God's sakes. I mean, Dwight D. Eisenhower pointed this out years ago, and I think people are, they were woken up by this, and then Ukraine happened, and then I don't know what happened, the liberal landscape, if Trump just completely destroyed their brains. But now people are starting to re-risen to the fact that this is just complete BS. This is all a manufactured proxy war to manufacture aggression against Russia, and it's using every NATO country, United States, Canada, the European Union, all of them, lucratively, to perpetuate even more of a harmful situation. And all it's hurting is regular people that don't want war in the first place. And that's what Vladimir Putin pointed out. But he's the evil, nefarious one. He's the coward child, but not cowardly enough to use nuclear capabilities. Like I said, you gotta love American journalism. It's such a comedic satire. Because anyone with a brain could realize that doesn't add up. That doesn't add up.